I found out I was gifted when I was 17, when my writer's craft teacher in grade 12 came up to me and just asked me, "Are you gifted?" And I was like, no, or I'm not sure. I don't know. It was something along those lines. But she sent me to the guidance counselor's office, and the guidance counselor asked me some questions, and later on she eventually called my parents and recommended that I see a psychologist. I asked my mom a little bit more about being gifted, and she said, yeah, like you started talking at 6 months, and by the time I was a year and a half, I would like answer the phone and be like, "Hello, how's it going?" She said that teachers would mention to her and my dad that I was gifted, and and just nothing really happened after that. I think there was a little bit of a language barrier. So although my parents knew what being gifted meant, that I think that they were a little oblivious as to where to go from there. Because I was a fairly independent child, so they didn't really see how I might need extra support and accommodation in school. When I learned something, I wanted to know everything about it. I could do one thing, and before you know it, I was curious enough to find so many ways to experience that one book or that one puzzle, just as many ways as possible that I could. And I could do this for hours. But I will say that when I did find something to focus on, it's almost as if I couldn't part with that activity or piece of knowledge for a very long time. I almost lived it, sometimes for like weeks. I also think that my giftedness made it difficult to relate to a lot of my peers when I was younger. I would chat with adults all day long. Like I could do it all the time, and I even preferred it at times. But I found elementary school really difficult. I got bullied. I would get really distracted. I couldn't focus. That could have been because I wasn't sleeping really well through the night. Like that's where my anxiety started. I was around maybe 7 years old, or 6 or 7 years old. I think my parents' lack of education and just like general exposure to like gifted students obviously had something to do with it. Part of me feels like it's because I went to an overpopulated school. There was like always like 30 kids in my classroom. I could see how it would have been really difficult for my teachers to advocate for me. I think some teachers just thought I had a problem with focusing. My anxiety manifested itself in mostly physical ways, so primarily in my sleep, and just other neurological effects. I'd be up all night. I would feel very lethargic. When I did sleep, I would just jump into REM sleep, so I would have very, very vivid dreams, and sometimes they would be really spooky. I would have anxiety about going to sleep when I was a kid, because I just didn't want to have another nightmare or something, so that just made it worse, and it got progressively worse as I got older. But in hindsight, I think it's because my brain was working all the time, just all the time. While doing research on giftedness, it really hit me that you're not just gifted in the classroom, you're gifted all the time. And I think when a child isn't given the opportunity to actually like exercise that really complex thinking muscle, its development essentially becomes stalled. It's almost as if I couldn't find a way to release all that energy, so I just kept it all in, and that caused some implications for me. I think it definitely came with its challenges, but overall, I truly believe that giftedness, or being gifted as a child, helped my learning. Because I think by the time I got to university, I realized like just how much of a deep thinker I was. When I learn something, I learn it very deeply, and not necessarily because I want to, but because I need to. It's part of my process of understanding any given concept, equation, any kind of idea. I've learned to be really patient with myself when it comes to learning something new, because sometimes it's hard to let some things go before you move on to another concept. Like you learn one thing and you're so focused on that. Even if you understand it, like you're just trying to learn more about it so that your knowledge about it and your understanding of it can be fully imprinted in your brain or concrete, and that you can see it from all angles before moving on to the next step. In the same way, my anxiety has introduced me to different coping skills and ways of thinking that, and being that I never would have encountered otherwise or never would have explored otherwise. We recently learned a lot about metacognitive skill building and executive function in the intermediate learner, and the importance of mindfulness meditation as part of a learning literacy. I think incorporating that type of skill building and emphasizing physical activity and mental health is going to be just hugely important and helpful towards gifted students who kind of fell through the cracks like I did. I don't even know if I'm still gifted or not, because some people do grow out of it. I definitely think that the complex thinking has stayed. It's going to stay forever. Sorry, guys. Overall, I think that particular type of skill building, as much attention that it's going to be given in the future, which it will, it's gaining steam. I think it'll really help other exceptional kids along the way who don't have a chance of being advocated for or advocating for themselves.